Good morning, listeners. You're welcome to this week's Ag Report. I'm Jim Finn. My guests this morning are Jack Doherty from Liffey Mills, Peter Thomas Keaveney from the Farmers Journal, and my final guest this morning will be Pat O'Toole. My first guest this morning is Conor Grace from Teagasc, and we are going to be having a chat about reseeding in 2026 and mainly saying is it worth doing it? Good morning, Conor, and thanks for joining us.
Morning, Jim. Thanks very much for having me on.
Okay, as I said there at the introduction, that we're going to be having a chat about reseeding. So, why, Conor, should somebody reseed?
Yeah, I suppose, Jim, reseeding is definitely a significant investment at the minute. We don't need to talk about the weather. Everyone is well aware of that. And I suppose you're talking roughly around nearly 1,000 to 1,100 euro per hectare when everything is accounted for between spraying, cultivation, seed, and fertilizer. So it is a quite a large investment. But I suppose the reality is on farms is that all grassland is quietly costing money every single year without always being noticed. And I suppose a lot of them older swards are producing nearly up to 3 ton less of dry matter per hectare compared to the modern varieties. And on top of that, they're significantly less efficient, using up nitrogen. I suppose we're all aware that the cost of nitrogen at the moment it has skyrocketed, so we want to be getting the best use out of it, as it is nearly them older swards are nearly up to 25% less efficient as well. So farmers were kind of guilty of often putting out fertilizer but not getting the full return from it. So really, instead of asking, can you afford to reseed, the better question is, can I afford not to? Because when you look at your poor performing paddocks, they can be costing in the region nearly 300 euro a hectare per year in a loss of production. And this also has a counterbalance on your reduced annual performance. And I suppose over a number of years, that kind of far outweighs the cost of doing of reseeds. So it does.
Conor, when then should a farmer reseed? I've seen over the past week or so some fields have been burnt off. Of course, the weather isn't conducive to reseeding, but I presume they're going to be reseeded in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I suppose looking up the outlook for the weather, it is picking up there from today on. It is going to pick up anyway, and we'll be all glad to hear. But I suppose timing it is key to making a reseeding work. And I suppose for most farms, spring reseeding, so the likes of now in April and into May, it is still the best option. You've got higher soil temperatures, which helps the germination, and also to give you the best chance of getting clover established, which is a major part of reseeding now. And I suppose another big advantage of it is the turnaround time. So if you're going reseeding, say in the next 2 to 3 weeks, if it's done properly, it can be ready for grazing again in about 6 to 8 weeks. So like while it's out of rotation for a short period, it comes back in quickly enough and starts contributing again. And I suppose what I just say on the whole reseeding aspect, I'd mainly target the worst paddocks first anyway. I suppose every farm has them, the paddocks they're sort of slow to grow, they're full of weeds, old grasses, and just not performing. They're the ones dragging the overall system down. So they obviously would be the priorities. And I suppose another part this year, there was a lot of poaching kind of carried out earlier on the year on a lot of farms. Nothing we could do about it, obviously, with weather conditions. So I suppose them paddocks that maybe have been badly poached in the previous rotations and have kind of struggled to recover up until now, they should be one kind of targeted as well at the moment, if they're not recovering as well.
You spoke there a lot about performance. So, what's the difference in performance?
Yeah, I suppose this is really where reseeding shows its value. Like a well-established reseed can grow up to between 20 and 40% more grass across the year than an older sward that of a field that hasn't been reseeded. And I suppose a lot of that extra grass actually comes in the spring and autumn when grass is most valuable when on the farm. And I suppose that extra growth it translates into more days of grass, which obviously has an impact on reducing the need for meal or silage. And it can also help farmers to increase their stocking rate slightly if they want to do so, or just simply run a more efficient system. And I suppose then on the animal performance side, the better grass quality is a huge benefit. Like we see now with the newer swords, the higher digestibility, which obviously means animals, they can convert their grass into milk, or obviously weight gain more efficiently. And I suppose the big one for dairy farmers, it's an increase in milk solids, which they're getting paid on. And obviously for beef farmers, it can mean better daily life again, which we're all striving towards as farmers. So I suppose if you're getting both more grass and better grass quality, that's a powerful combination, not to be underestimated anyway.
Okay, I suppose the one thing that's very important to farmers is the return on the investment. So, what kind of return on the investment you mentioned there at the very beginning that it can cost between 1,000 and 1,200 to reseed a hectare? So, what kind of a return can the farmer expect?
Yeah, I suppose it's the biggest question for most farmers, that they'd be asking, how much is it, what is the return on investment, and rightly so. And I suppose while the cost is in around, like you said, the 1,100, €1,200 mark per hectare, the payback is typically within 2 years when reseeding, if it's done properly and managed well. Afterwards, I suppose, like on dairy farms, getting an extra kilo of grass, dry matter into a cow per day can be worth up to €120 per cow per year, in a profit. So that's a major figure there. And so, like, them small improvements in grass intake can have a big financial impact at the end of the year. And I suppose when you combine then obviously your increased grass growth, your better utilisation, improved animal performance, and reduced reliance on this bought in feed such as meal, reseeding, it constantly comes out as one of the highest return investments on the farm that can be slightly overlooked. And I suppose it's just once off. It's not just a once off benefit either. Like a good reseed, it will continue to deliver improved performance for a number of years. So the return, it will build over time. So it's not a return for the first 1 or 2 years. The return will build over time as well when you are producing more grass on farm.
Okay, I presume that the slide rule still says that the farmer should reseed a tenth of the farm every year.
Yeah, no, that road is still there. Between 5 to 10%.
10%.
That road is definitely still there, and a lot of farmers will be kind of striving towards that at the moment. And I suppose last year was a great year for reseeding. We all know last year was a great springtime, and a lot of farmers got a lot of reseeding done because there was great grass growth. It was a great grass growth year, and hopefully we can get back on track this year and reach them targets again of the 5 and 10% again. Absolutely.
Okay, you have mentioned clover a couple of times, Connor. Clover and nitrogen efficiency, how do they perform?
Yeah, so I suppose clover, it's a really important part of reseed now. I suppose as part of the derogation, if whether you're in derogation, it's actually compulsory to include a kilo and a half per hectare of clover seed in them. And I suppose a well-established grass and clover sward can fix anywhere between 70 and 150 kilos nitrogen per hectare from the atmosphere, which is a huge saving on fertilizer, especially with the cost of it now these days. And I suppose that reduces your need for chemical fertilizer, but it also improves the overall nutrient use efficiency on the farm. So, like, if you're getting more output for every unit of nitrogen use, it is a big save. And also clover, it improves animal performance as well, especially on dairy farms. It increases milk solids output, and it helps maintain good grass quality throughout the season, which we all strive towards. So, like, in modern reseeding, it's not just putting in new grass varieties, it's about establishing a grass and clover system that's obviously more productive for your farm, more efficient and better suited to where farming is heading at the moment. And obviously to reduce down costs, which we're trying to do in these times as well.
Connor, we started off by saying when is the right time? Given the amount of rain that we have had in the past week, how soon do you think a farmer should be able to get out, if the weather improves, to be able to reseed?
Yeah, so look, it all depends on ground conditions at the moment. I suppose different parts of Tipperary they have different types of soil type, and no one knows their farm better than themselves. But obviously, with weather picking up from now on, hopefully we can get machinery out on land to travel, and we'd be looking at, if you have fields identified for reseeding, looking at getting them sprayed off in the coming week while the weather is fine, and get things moving, because obviously it will take 2 weeks for it to burn off or before you can start any cultivation work. So the sooner you act, the better when the weather picks up. Definitely be my advice anyway.
Okay. Your simple message for this morning, so with regard to reseeding?
Yeah, I suppose, look, it isn't just a cost, it's an investment. And I suppose if farmers just target their poorest paddocks, get the timing right, and include clover, the return on investment will follow. And I suppose any farmer you talk to that has reseeded a field, they'll never look back on it anyway, because it weighs out dividends of the amount of grass grown compared to their older paddocks anyway.
Okay, Connor. Any events coming up that we need to highlight?
Yeah, I suppose just when we're on the topic of reseeding, I suppose we actually are hosting a reseeding event there next Friday, the 24th of April at 11:30. It's on the farm of John Martina and Cora Lundergan there in Care. We're going through the main points there, some of them what I've covered there, why reseeding, the seedbed preparation, choosing grass and clove varieties, and post-sowing management. And I suppose, look, it's in Care. The air code there is E21. FT 2022, so that will be a good event to attend if you are planning on doing any reseeding, especially with the weather picking up as well. And then there, our local tillage advisor there, Conor Kavanagh, he's actually hosting a spring crop walk there as well next Tuesday, the 21st of April in Care, also on the farm of Pat Murphy, Whitechurch there, where he'll be looking at all aspects of cereal agronomy, fertilizer application, spring beans, and crop establishment systems. I suppose now it's a great time for these events to be coming on when the weather is looking to be picking up, so lads can get their eye back into the game as well. Obviously when the weather is picking up, there'll be a lot of field work being carried out. So they're the two events that are happening across the prairie next week, held by Chagas anyway, Jim. So they are.
Okay, Connor Tuckett, thanks very much for joining us this morning. That, listeners, was Connor Grace from Chagas. Listeners, following on there from my few words with Connor Grace, now I have online Jack Doherty from Liffey Mills, and I suppose Jack is going to tell us all about what Liffey Mills have to offer at the moment, but I'm quite sure, as probably most of you know, they would also be in the business of selling seeds, and grass seeds would be one of the seeds they would sell. So we might have a little bit more about reseeding in 2026. Good morning, Jack, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Jim, and a very good morning to all your listeners in County Tipperary this morning. It's great to be able to join you all this morning.
Yeah, thanks for the God you're able to join us this morning. Hopefully the weather will pick up. It has been very, very difficult. And I'm quite sure that the difficult weather has had an impact on Liffey Mills' business.
Absolutely, Jim. There's a number of ways of looking at this, I suppose. One of the central elements, I guess, to our business is the whole tillage sector. And, you know, spring cereals have been very slow to be planted this year, given the late spring, as you've said. And ground conditions have been very disagreeable to sow any crop, really. And in addition to that, it's been very difficult to treat what crops have been in the ground already. I mean, we look at some of the winter cereals and the different winter crops as well. And, you know, the weather at the moment with this mild, well, in places mild, but wet, predominantly weather, you know, is the perfect conditions for all these fungal diseases to attack crops. So, you know, because it's challenging to get out to fields, and farmers really have to, you know, pick their moments, really, and it is moments to try and just get out to the field and get their fungicide sprayed to protect, you know, your flag leaves and your leaves as they come now, and to try and get the most yield out of the plants. So certainly from that point of view, from the tillage end of things, it has been a very late spring, and it is becoming, you know, increasingly difficult to manage as the year pushes on. But look, we've seen this in years gone past where, even some spring barleys, for example, have been sown, in the first couple of days in May even, and have yielded a great harvest considering how late they had went in. So that's so look, we remain hopeful and we remain optimistic that we will get our opportunity to go out, but sooner rather than later, I guess. But we can see, even just anyone driving around or that, can see that there's a lot of ground already burnt off with Roundup, for the sowing of cereals and indeed grass seed as well. For various different reasons, obviously with the weather again, a lot of ground hasn't got the opportunity to be grazed yet, and grazing rotations on beef, dairy, and sheep farms have been slow about happening, and few farms are on their second rotation just yet, so that's just I guess an observation that we see now at the moment. So as you were saying about the seed, so we expect a strong demand, I guess, for grass seed now in the coming weeks, as well as people, maybe take the opportunity that has presented itself now, maybe to just go ahead and to spray for reseeding. Yeah.
And I suppose you stock a variety of grass seeds to suit whether it's for silage only, or whether it is for mixed grazing, or whether it's for the dairy farmer. So
absolutely, Jim. Look, we're very grateful in Liffey's that we're able to provide a full service to all our customers, from the point of spraying, from the that the decision is made to reseed, that we're able to support them the whole way in supplying your glyphosate based products, and then, as I say, your grass seed and post emergent spray as well, and being able to give farmers the correct advice when it comes to tackling different weeds or different situations that arise, or problems, I guess, that happen when you're reseeding. So while we provide the full range of conventional grass seeds, we provide multi-species, we provide alternative organics, grass seed, for example, hybrids, your forage rapes, your red starts, kales, leafy turnips, arable silage, and so on. But I suppose, just to get down maybe to the nuts and bolts, I guess, of our conventional grass seed range, and many of your listeners this morning will have sown our grass mixes over the years, and we've continued to develop and to grow them, and to try and suit as many farmers as possible who really want to get the best benefit out of reseeding. So I suppose we'll start with our gold sward, really, which is our dual purpose mix, if you like. So there's a lovely blend of both diploids and tetraploids in it. So you're getting great ground cover, and you're getting high digestibility as well. And these varieties have been selected for a balance between silage and for late grazing as well. So it's sort of an all-round mix. And I suppose maybe at this point it's just important to note that all the varieties that we use are independently tested by the Department of Agriculture in their various testing stations, and they are all scored for the different qualities, shall we say, whether it be silage making, graze outs, digestibility, spring growth, autumn growth, and so on. And the full range is available, for everyone to view, shall we say, on the department's websites, and indeed on our literature as well that we distribute at this time of the year. So then, as well as that, we have two intensive grazing varieties as well, our sweet sward and our tetra sward. So our sweet sward has the number one variety in it this year, called Banbridge, which is shot straight to the top of the Teagasc PPI. So it is the number one variety on the top of the PPI, and it has absolutely phenomenal spring growth as well as silage making characteristics as well. We have field added into it as well, which has the highest score of any late tetraploid for grazing utilization, and as well as that, it has Aztec Conquer as well for the highest score of grazing utilization, again for any diploid variety, because tetraploids by nature are have a far superior grazing utilization over diploids, but the Aztec Conquer, as I say, is right up amongst the best of the tetraploids as well. So that gives the perfect balance between tetraploid and diploid varieties. We have 100% tetraploid mix with Nishota, Aston Energy, and Anurat, complete with a kilo clover. Now, it's important to note that all our grass seed varieties have, or mixes, shall I say, have clover in them as standard. But in our tetraploid mix, we have a kilo of white clover in it as well, to complement the mix as well. So this is for the real intensive grazing situations. So we have in this fully tetraploid mix, we have the three highest economic values on the PPI of any late heading tetraploid variety, And a lot of these grass seed names will be familiar to people that are constantly reseeding over the years. And then, as I say, we have, mixes for silage that are, fully diploid mixes for silage making. We have a heavy soils mixture. And of course, we stock the red clover silage mixture, which is extremely popular over the last couple of years for its ability to be able to fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. So it doesn't need chemical nitrogen. And as well as that, providing a high protein crop for any growing animals, shall we say, with average proteins of the silage coming back in. It's important to note that there is 10 kilos of grass seed in the mix as well. But bringing back in silage that has a protein reading of 17, 18, 19%, which is phenomenal compared to average silage being 12, 13, 14%. And as I say, displacing the nitrogen use on it, which is obviously such an expense on farms in this day and age.
Yeah. Now, okay, that's the seed and the grass seeds in particular, but I'm quite sure the weather, from the point of view of the other side of the business, and that is the supplying of meal to your customers, I'm quite sure that given that weather, that the season has been extended, that people are using concentrates to feed their animals.
Absolutely. So we're looking now here on the Saturday, the 18th of April here now, and I'm sure when I say this that many farms across your listenership, Jim, have still dairy cows out or in by night and are still getting silage, and indeed many yearlings and weanlings and different stock are still in sheds across the county and across the catchment as well. That obviously brings its own challenge in terms of thrive and, of course, the expense and the slurry tanks filling up. I suppose within Liffey Mills ourselves, yes, it has definitely increased the demand. I mean, we see with the live export calf market has meant that a lot more calves are being reared in the country as well, which is leading to a much higher demand for calf ration we see in particular. And as the biggest distributors and manufacturers of calf rations nationally, we feel that the tonnages are definitely, we can see that difference that, there is more calves being fed at this, this time of year when compared to last year. But as I've mentioned briefly about the dairy cows as well, I mean, dairy cows are being fed, 6 kilos as standard almost at this stage, which is, versus this time last year, a nice, remarkable jump up from where you might expect it to be, So that's obviously a thing that we're seeing as well. So there's a high demand in, shall we say, dairy nuts and in the calf rations as well. And as well as that, I mean, the beef sector is going strong. Yeah, it's a very busy time for us at this time of the year, and when comparing it to other years, definitely production is up. So yeah, which we're grateful to be able to do. And of course, there was difficulties over the last week or so in sourcing raw materials, but we're very thankful that we were able to keep going and to keep manufacturing and supplying all our customers during that little bit of turbulence as well.
Okay, the little bit of trouble that we had last weekend. Look, I want to thank you very much, Jack, for joining us this morning and sharing all that information with the listener. That, listeners, was Jack Doherty from Liffey Mills. Listeners, my next guest this morning is Peter Thomas Keaveney, and you may remember I had Peter on about 3 weeks ago because he is the person in the Farmers Journal who is involved in Grass 2026, which is taking place in Cuffs Grange on Wednesday, the 29th of April. And that's only just around the corner. And at that time we didn't have much details, but now we have a lot of details. So Peter is with me to tell you all about it. Good morning, Peter, and thanks for joining us.
Jim, how are you keeping? Thanks for having me on.
I'm keeping great. Tell me this now, Peter. It's 3 weeks ago, I think, since we had chat, as I said there at the beginning. And at that time, things weren't great as far as grass growth is concerned. And of course, you need good grass for this particular event in Cuffs Grange. So how has the grass got on since? Or because the weather since hasn't been great either, has it?
No, absolutely, Jim. The weather hasn't been great since. I suppose, and a lot of dairy farms in my part of the world, the west of Ireland, they're in and out. And I'm sure it's the same down your part, and we're buffering with silage. But I suppose, Jim, in the weather windows that we we got the slurry on early. We got 2 splits of urea on. We didn't graze the ground, so we're actually very happy with the covers we have. As you know yourself, Jim, grass grows grass, the age-old saying. So there was a good cover on it going into from the back end. The last one was grazed, and it's got every chance it could to grow, and we've a very good cover on it. So look, we're happy. It's been tough conditions up to now. All your listeners will be well aware of that. But there seems to be a turn coming in the weather, Jim. In my part of the world, the local forecast is showing maybe a turn coming from Saturday on, and a good week next week. So if we could ever get a bit of heat to power it on, but we're definitely happy with where we are, Jim. But luckily we didn't graze it. So all is good on that front.
Okay, now, basically it's an event for grass and the cutting of grass and the making of silage and all the equipment that goes with it. So where are you at the moment?
Yeah, so where we're at, the countdown is on, Jim. It's Wednesday week. So Grass 2026 is the name of the event. It's a live silage machinery demonstration event. As I said, it's on Wednesday, the 29th of April. As you introduced, it's taking place in Cuffesgrange, County Kilkenny. The event is aimed at farmers, contractors, machinery operators and machinery enthusiasts. And it's a new event initiative hosted by ourselves, the Irish Farmers Journal, and it's supported by FBD Insurance. So that's kind of an overview of it, Jim. Then I suppose when it comes to the actual event, on the day we're going to have all the leading grass machinery manufacturers. The plan is to showcase, I suppose, the latest and greatest in terms of equipment, in terms of cutting and ensiling the grass. So that's going to be pretty much, Jim, every machine that you can think of in making grass silage. So we're going to have mowers, we're going to have tedders, we're going to have rakes, we're going to have balers, forage wagons, forage harvesters. There's a couple of machines there that are expected to make their Irish debut on the day. There's a few machines that are leaving Germany there in the last few days that are destined for Cuffesgrange. On the day, we're also going to have a bale handling demonstration. So that's going to showcase the different methods and machinery involved in handling the bales. There's going to be a live pit demonstration taking place. So we're going to have a number of different wheel loaders and other equipment there used for the ensiling process. As you know, Jim, the pit is the most important part of the pit silage operation. So we're also going to show silage compactors there, Jim. I'm not sure if you've seen or heard much about them, but they're starting to become popular there in the continent the last few years, and the UK, and now they're in Northern Ireland as well. And then the final part of the demonstration will be, there'll be live commentary then around the demos and around the machinery that's working on the day. That'll be starting in the morning and running through the afternoon and into the evening. So that'll provide a rundown of each of the machines that are there. And then we'll also be talking then about good advice making silage, and there'll be experts in their field there that'll be chatting to that, because you can have all the shiny machinery you want, Jim, but if the fundamentals aren't correct, you know yourself. And then obviously we'll have the trade village as well, Jim.
Of course, that's very important as well. Now, I know the event is virtually an all-day event, so you're going to have to need catering facilities, etc., to keep the visitors and the people you expect to come in the gate from falling down on the day.
Well, that's very important, Jim. There's a couple of sayings there on you won't run on an empty stomach, and the same as the tractor won't run without the diesel, but no, definitely there'll be plenty of food anyway, Jim. One thing is you definitely won't go hungry on the day.
Well, that's very important, because it's part of days out for farmers and contractors. I take it that, you mentioned farmers and contractors, Peter, but I take it a lot of this is mainly for the contractor, is it?
I suppose a lot of the machinery in the demonstration, there's big and there's small. So there's also going to be single balers and single wrappers as in non-combi machines. Like when you look at the mowers, a lot of the mowers are butterflies and self-propels. But like the fundamentals of, if you look at a butterfly mower, it's two 10-foot beds put together, the rear unit, and in the majority of cases it's actually the exact same unit that's used for the farmers. It's a single mower, so although there is a lot of big mowers in the demo and tedders, there's also some smaller farmer ones in the demonstration as well. But then the other thing, Jim, is that we'll say we're going to have a lively trade village. So that trade village is going to be jam-packed with machines and services from across the industry, beyond just grass equipment. Obviously there'll be slurry equipment, for seeding equipment, etc. in there as well. And in that trade village, there'll be manufacturers, importers, dealers. So they're going to be on hand to discuss farmers' needs, contractors' needs, all their machinery needs. And to date there's around 100 stands signed up for the trade village. And included in that there, we're doing a preview of it in this week's paper. I'm actually writing it here at the minute, or sorry, for next week's paper, Jim.
Yeah.
And there'll be a roundup of all the machines that'll be there on the demonstration and also in the static stand. And there's a huge amount that is aimed for the farmer. So, no, it's definitely not an event for the larger person. It's going to be a spectacle that's going to include everyone. And we thought that was important because you know yourself, the majority of farmers have a mower now and a tether, like, and so it's definitely important to include everyone, you know.
Right, when you're talking about all grass machines, then I suppose one grass machine that virtually every single farmer has, and they have improved considerably in recent years, and that's the topper.
The topper, yeah. Grassland management, yeah.
Grassland management now, not necessarily silage management. So I'm quite sure some of the exhibitors will have those there as well.
They will, of course, Jim, yeah. But even what I've seen, Jim, would be out and about on farms, and that is that, like, the traditional topper is starting, like, you know, the sales of them toppers would be gone down a lot. And what we're seeing, Jim, is that the majority of lads now that are going out to the market to buy new is they're actually buying a disc mower, a plain disc mower, so a non-conditioner disc mower. And it gives that little bit of a cleaner of a cut. And then the farmer also has the option then, you know yourself, if he wants to cut the silage at 1 or 2 o'clock in the day, and if the contractor has 20 lads to cut in the day, he can't get everyone at 10 past 12 or quarter past 1. So what we often see, Jim, is that, especially with the bales, the pit's different, but, you know, if a lad is taking out a smaller, you know, a few paddocks of that, is they've transitioned away from a topper and they're buying a disc mower, plain disc mower, and they're mowing out their own paddocks, and then obviously the contractor's doing the rest. But that's what we've seen, Jim, around and about, you know.
That's very interesting, because you think that people are really going back to something that we used for topping 20-25 years ago.
Yeah, like the old finger bar mower, Jim.
Oh, no, I'm going beyond the finger bar mower. I know I definitely in my time used a disc mower to top. You mentioned one thing, this compactor. I presume that's a machine that does much better compacting than your JCB above and top of your pit.
The way modern silage operations have gone, Jim, is foragers have got bigger. I suppose a lot of the farms have got bigger. There's maybe less contractors. The harvesters have got bigger to put in more grass in a shorter period of time. The trailers have got bigger to draw the grass. One time was 14-foot trailers, then it went to 16-foot trailers, then an 18 and 20-foot trailer was big. And now, Jim, especially in your parts of the country, 24 and 25 and even 26-foot trailers, tri-axle trailers are very much the norm. And tractors have got bigger. And with this, loading shovels have got bigger. And, you know, like your 457 JCB, your 380 Komatsu, your 110 Volvo, a lot of them loaders now are going into the bones of 20 tons in weight. But what a lot of guys are finding is that the size of the pits actually haven't gotten any bigger. So you're trying to put more grass in quicker into the same size pit. So that brings about its own challenges with compaction. And as we said there earlier, Jim, that, you know, the silage pit is the most important part of it. So some contractors have transitioned towards 2 loaders, and then what more guys have done is they've transitioned towards a silage compactor. So essentially, like, there was guys that would have went out and made their own compactors, and what they might have done is they might have joined up a 3 meter wide of train wheels, and literally every second pass, so the loader might do the first pass, and then in the next pass, then a tractor with a 3-point linkage mounted train wheels or a compactor as such will be rolling in the silage and compacting it in. And it's a very simple operation, and they're not that expensive of a machine, but I suppose from the contractor point of view, it's another man, it's another tractor, it's more diesel, it's more wear and tear. But I've seen now in the north, last year now, I've seen some of them in action, and some of the bigger farmers in the north have actually purchased them themselves. And we done a feature with a guy last year, Jim, a small-time contractor, and he actually has 2 of these compactors. We run them on about 160, 70 horsepower tractor, and you just need a bit of weight. And his job is actually going around compacting, working on the pits alongside the contractors, because, you know yourself, Jim, when the sun is shining and there's rain promising 4 or 5 days, the contractors are going day and night. All the tractors they have are going. Oftentimes the farmers maybe mightn't have the time or mightn't have a tractor up on 150 or 60 or 70 horsepower, and they might want to invest maybe the 10 or 15,000 in this item, but there's probably a small opening there for contractors here and there, like, because from chatting to the guys in the north, they reckon it's definitely worthwhile. You know, that they can see the results in the silage, and they seem to be very happy with it. So that's a trend that probably we could see here in the south in the next few years. So definitely want to keep an eye on, Jim.
Okay, just remind the listeners again of the event and when it's happening, and at what time you open the gates and what time you close them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Grass 2026 live silage machinery demonstration taking place Wednesday the 29th of April, taking place in Cuffs Grange and County Kilkenny, and it'll be running throughout the demonstrations will be running throughout the day. We're nailing down the schedule there tomorrow, Jim, but I'm hoping it'll be kicking off at around between 10 and half 10 in the morning.
Okay, that, listeners, was Peter Thomas Keaveney talking about Grass 2026, which takes place in Cuffs Grange on next Wednesday week. Listeners, my next guest this morning is Pat O'Toole from the Irish Farmers Journal, and as you know, he is the political editor. Good morning, Pat. Good to have you back on air here in Tipperary again.
Good to be back, Jim.
Okay, how's Wexford hurling before we go any further? I don't know how tips are at the moment.
But sure, we have to wait and see now. The league is over and the fun begins this weekend. We're up in Conlitz in Newbridge, and hopefully we'll come through that. And the second week is Kilkenny, who play Galway in Pearse Stadium. So the Leinster Championship won't be long getting up and running, no more than the Munster Championship. I can't wait. Can't wait myself.
We're all looking forward to it, Pat. Okay, we've had, since we spoke last, we've had quite an upheaval with regard to, I suppose, the agricultural side of politics.
We really have, culminating in the resignation of Michael Healy-Rae and the departure of the two Healy-Raes from the government side of the fence. Although I suppose, Danny, we had that whole hoo-ha 15 months ago where Danny and the other independents who weren't actually in government wanted to sit on the opposition benches, and you probably remember that whole standoff. Yeah. And it hasn't aged well when you see what went on this week. It hasn't aged well, but that's an aside. I think the fuel protests, there was so many aspects to it. One that was significant, I think, was that the volume of public support for the protesters in Dublin and around the country, despite the fact that they were blocking up cities and towns and motorways and slowing down traffic and, affecting people's daily routines, and then also blocking the ports and, with an almost immediate impact on availability of fuel. Fertilizer and feed was coming under pressure. And we were getting calls in the paper from people, representing those sectors who were feeling the pressure, who were saying that they had only days of supply left. So it just shows how fragile our supply systems are, the whole just in time and the lack of storage of necessary imports in this country, including fuel. I'm old enough to remember when Whiddy Island was in full swing and the loss of that oil terminal. It's never been replaced, and it leaves us very vulnerable. And one of the things a lot of the protesters talked about through last week was the fact that we've invested a huge amount in renewable energy in this country over the last 25 years, but all of it's been gobbled up by the huge amount of data centers that have been built in this country. And we're as oil dependent as we ever were. As a result, certainly sectors like agriculture are as oil dependent as they ever were in a very changed world.
Pat, have we learned anything from what happened last weekend?
Well, I've learned that the government is error prone. I think that various pronouncements by Jim O'Callaghan, Patrick O'Donovan, Simon Harris, Micheál Martin, Helen McEntee could be classified as unfortunate. But when you put them all together, you paint a picture of a government that seems not to be sure-footed in terms of how it dealt with what was a very difficult situation for any government to deal with, where there was, near anarchy. I think that the loss of Michael Healy-Rae is huge. He's been a very effective attack dog for the government when rural issues have been to the fore. We saw during the Larry Murren debate in the Dáil where he drew Sinn Féin onto him and started a row and distracted away from the main argument when you could say the opposition seemed to have the high moral ground. He deflected and distracted and was very effective on behalf of the government. I think the government are going to miss him significantly when the next battle of that nature is fought in the Dáil chambers. He'll be on the other side. I think that we also heard from those representatives who are recognised by government and who have the right of representation that when they went in on Friday to sit down with government to look at fuel supports, that the government had nothing ready. They had nothing ready to go. They thought that the government's thinking would be advanced, but it took all day Friday and all day Saturday to get a package together and to get that agreed. And then it was Sunday afternoon by the time Cabinet had signed off on it and it was publicised. And unfortunately, at that stage, the decision had been taken to remove the fuel or the fuel protest blockades at our ports. And I think that has triggered, huge resentment among the protesters. Meeting them up in Dublin in Molesworth Street on Tuesday, they'd all gone home on Saturday evening or on Sunday. They'd had a night's sleep, they'd maybe assessed how much work needed to be done while they'd been away. And they were in Dublin. Not many farmers in Dublin on Tuesday, but a lot of contractors. It was a wet day and there wasn't much contractors could do, I'd say. And they were very enraged by that government decision. They felt it was an escalation that wasn't necessary. So there's an awful lot politically that has, happened.
Yeah. What's your take on the 3 young Fianna Fáil people who came out? One of them here in Tipperary who came out on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think it is significant. They seem frustrated. It was a very well written letter and it made a lot of points and it harked back to the origins of Fianna Fáil and how they were a very young party at their foundation of young men who had been, I suppose, tempered in the War of Independence, the Civil War and the aftermath. Who built a party that has dominated the politics of this nation for its first century of independence. Micheál Martin might be more vulnerable if there was a credible challenger, but I think Jim O'Callaghan didn't do himself any favours over the last week. There's an old saying, Teddy Roosevelt, I think, is the one who's credited with it, where speak softly and carry a big stick. In other words, you don't threaten the army. If you need to use the army, you just deploy it. Threatening the army as early in play as Jim O'Callaghan did was seen as a strategic error. So Fianna Fáil, the likes of Dara O'Brien, James Brown, and similarly with Fine Gael, the likes of Helen McEntee, Simon Harris himself, and Patrick O'Donovan, who had a disastrous intervention on Monday, talking about the coverage of because if there's one thing worse than, if you're a politician, if there's one thing worse than criticising the public, it's criticising the media, the people who are commentating on your every action. Politically disastrous, I would think. So there's no huge slew of candidates to replace either Simon Harris or Micheál Martin at this point in time.
Okay. Getting back then to the actual farming side of the politics, do you feel that the actual power that the IFA and to a lesser degree the Irish Cream and Milk Suppliers Association had in negotiations, that the protests and the way they were organised has diminished the power that they have?
It's an interesting question. It's hard to know. It's difficult to evaluate that just yet. We saw in 2019 when, the emergence of Beef Plan in late 2018, there went to the protest to blocking the factories. There was a schism within that and the IBLA was formed. When the pressure came on under injunction, when the leaders were, under threat of being held personally liable for factory losses, they stepped away from the gates, and we saw the independent farmers of Ireland emerge. They quickly split into two factions. All of those gained representation at the Beef Stakeholders Forum, but have not had any representation since. And then in November of 2019, another group emerged through social media, the Individual Farmers of Ireland. I think Daniel Long from Tipperary was one of the founders, but the other significant founders were James Geoghegan, John Dallin, and Christopher Duffy, and the three of those were very prominent in the last couple of weeks. So, like, what's happened in the last few weeks has its origins back in 2019 in many ways. And in those November protests, and again in January 2020, when Dublin was targeted and traffic disruption happened, the things you were hearing about were fuel costs, contractors' costs, the carbon tax. So I think that, you know, the recognised farm organisations are finding it hard to keep everyone on board with them when it's so fractured, and certainly it's hard for them not to be outflanked. There was a suspicion, and when I expressed that, in part, the decision by the IFA to escalate the Larry Murren situation was because the beef plan were the ones who had initially uncovered the fact that Subway had a contract that involved non-Irish beef and non-EU beef, and then it quickly emerged that Larry Murren's Dawn Farm Foods were supplying Subway, and that de facto Dawn Farm Foods were supplying non-Irish beef, and Larry Murren was the chairman of Board B. And the fact that that was first uncovered by Beef Plan, I think it was a factor in the IFA's thinking that they didn't want the Beef Plan to gain the credit for Larry Murren's removal. Of course, Larry Murren's removal is something that didn't happen and hasn't happened. There is a process underway, but all of that sort of churn within farmer opinion, farmer representation, and the ascent of one group after another through social media. We had the Farmers Alliance emerge a couple of years ago and then vanish, and there was an announcement last week that their chairman has overcome some health issues and that they're back on the pitch. So it's a crowded space, that's for sure.
Okay, well, we're not going to solve it this morning anyway, but thanks very much for joining us. Very informative, and as always, Pat, that listeners was Pat O'Toole, who is the political editor with the Irish Farmers Journal. That, listeners, is Ag Report for this week. I hope you enjoyed the show and that you'll join me at the same time next week. Coming up next is the news at 10 o'clock, and after that, Eamon Dwyer presents Down Your Way.